Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Peter Slezak. I'm an Australian academic, teach philosophy. I'm Jewish.
Tell me about the shock that this country is feeling in the wake of this anti-Semitic attack that occurred at Bondi Beach.
Well, it's the worst terrorist atrocity we've ever experienced, so there's no question about that. Of course, the Jewish community are traumatized.
Bibi Netanyahu has blamed the anti-Semitic attack on Australia's recognition of a Palestinian state, saying that the Australian Prime Minister Albanese has poured fuel on the anti-Semitism fire.
Recognizing Palestine was the right thing to do, and in fact it was long overdue. How on earth can that be connected to two mass murderers who commit an atrocity? But it tells you a lot about how Israel and the government there are trying to drive this narrative. My parents were Holocaust survivors. My mother and grandmother survived Auschwitz. My mother described coming into Auschwitz on the train in the cattle truck. Part of her family immediately went straight to the gas chambers. I grew up with my mother's stories, and I choke up sometimes trying to tell those stories. The Palestinians weren't to blame for the Holocaust. They shouldn't have paid the price, and they've been paying it ever since. To put it bluntly, the Holocaust has been exploited by Israel to justify its crimes against the Palestinians. Silence is not an option when there's crimes being committed in your name.
You also attended the massive march across the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Explain what that was like, what that moment was like.
It was inspiring. It was a moving event to see so many people came out, like 300,000 people maybe. It was huge. I don't think there's ever been one like that in the whole history of this country. But of course, the Zionists have tried to portray this as a Jew hate fest. It's bullshit. In Australia, as a result of what happened here in Bondi Beach, they're now trying to clamp down on all demonstrations of support for Palestine. They want to say, in fact, they're trying to even legislate formally that any criticism of Israel is necessarily anti-Semitic. Well, it just isn't, because there's plenty of reason to be critical of Israel. We in Australia manufacture some parts of the F-35 jets that are bombing Gaza. And I think of when Desmond Tutu said, in a case of injustice, to be neutral or to be silent is to side with the oppressor.
I've heard before the saying that Palestine is the great litmus test of our time. I'm American. As a U.S. taxpayer, my money is directly funding the bombs that are being dropped on refugee camps, hospitals. If we live in countries that are directly funding this genocide, it's up to all of us to speak out about it, right?
That's exactly right. We have our cultural origins and connections, but we also have to transcend those as a human being and see our common humanity. And I think that's our responsibility.